Captain Zathara felt the floor shake beneath her webbed feet as another system failed somewhere deep inside the stars. Grace? The bioorganic walls around her pulsed with a sickly yellow light instead of their normal healthy blue glow. She pressed her scaled hand against the nearest control surface and felt the ship's pain through her neural connection. Hull breach in section 7, called out her second officer Velton from across the bridge. His gills fluttered with stress as he worked at his station. The biosealant is not holding. We are losing atmosphere fast. Zathara closed her large eyes for a moment and tried to think. 3 days ago, the star's grace had been a perfect example of Valaxian bioengineering. The living ship could heal itself, adapt to new environments, and grow stronger over time. Now it was dying around them like a poisoned animal. What about the quantum communicator? She asked her communications officer, Nexala. Still working, but very weak, Nexala replied. Her voice bubbled through the water-filled breathing mask all Valaxians wore in low-humidity environments. I can send a distress signal, but I do not know if anyone will hear it. The trouble had started when they found the ancient artifact floating in empty space between star systems. It looked like a simple metal cube covered in strange symbols. Zathara had been excited because artifacts from the old civilizations were rare and valuable. The star's grace was an archaeological research vessel, and finding something completely unknown was exactly why they were out here in the deep void. But the moment they had activated their scanners to study the cube, everything went wrong. Some kind of virus had infected their bioneural networks. It spread through the ship's living systems like poison in blood. The star's grace began breaking down at the molecular level. Parts of the hull were literally dissolving. Captain, we need to abandon ship, said Chief Engineer Kelmore. His normal calm voice carried an edge of fear. The main biocore is failing. If it dies completely, we will lose life support in less than 6 hours. Zathara looked around at her crew of 17. They were all skilled scientists and explorers who had spent years together on deep space missions, but their escape pods had been damaged in the first wave of system failures. The star's grace was dying and they had nowhere to go. Send the distress signal, she ordered. Broadcast on all frequencies in Standard Galactic. Maybe someone will hear us. She knew it was a desperate hope. They were in empty space between the outer rim territories where few ships traveled. Even if someone picked up their signal, most species would be cautious about responding to an unknown vessel. First, they would want to verify identity and check for threats. Then they would need authorization from their governments. By the time help arrived, the star's grace would be nothing but scattered molecules. Far away in another part of space, the human destroyer USS Dakota moved through the void on routine patrol. Captain Kyle Harrison stood on the bridge watching the stars through the main view screen. He was a career military officer with gray hair and tired eyes who had served on the outer rim for 15 years. The Dakota was not the newest or most advanced ship in the fleet, but Harrison and his crew knew how to use her well. Captain, I am picking up a weak signal, said Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez at the communication station. She was young with dark hair pulled back in a regulation style. It sounds like a distress call, but the language is not in our database. Harrison walked over to listen as Rodriguez played the transmission. The voice was clearly alien with bubbling sounds that suggested the speaker lived in a water environment. Through the static and interference, he could make out mathematical concepts and what sounded like coordinates. Can you clean it up? He asked. Rodriguez worked at her console for several minutes, running the signal through different filters and translation programs. Slowly, the message became clearer. This is the research vessel Star's Grace requesting immediate assistance. We have suffered catastrophic system failure, hull breaches on multiple levels, life support failing, 17 crew members aboard. Our position is... The coordinates followed in basic mathematical terms. How far away are they? Harrison asked his navigation officer, Lieutenant Pete Watson. About 4 hours at maximum speed, sir, Watson replied. But Captain, we do not know anything about this species. They could be hostile. Regulations require us to report unknown contacts to Fleet Command before taking action. Harrison nodded, but his mind was already made up. Somewhere out there, 17 beings were dying in the cold vacuum of space. He had taken an oath long ago to protect all life, and that oath did not have exceptions for aliens. Set course for their position, maximum speed, he ordered, and signal Fleet Command that we are responding to a distress call. They can sort out the paperwork later. The Dakota turned away from its patrol route and accelerated toward the coordinates. Chief Engineer Ben Murphy reported from the engine room that all systems were running at peak efficiency. The ship's fusion drives pushed them through space at nearly half the speed of light. "Sir, I am reading some strange energy signatures from the distress coordinates," said Ensign Carol White at the sensor station. "Whatever ship is out there, it does not match any known design." "The hull appears to be organic." "Organic?" Harrison asked. "Yes, sir. It looks like it is grown rather than built. But, Captain, there is something else. The ship appears to be dissolving. Large sections of the hull are breaking apart at the molecular level." Harrison felt a chill. Whatever had happened to the alien vessel was beyond anything in human experience. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan, voiced what everyone was thinking. "This could be a trap, sir. An advanced alien species faking distress to lure us in close. Their technology is clearly superior to ours." "Maybe," Harrison agreed. "But we received a distress call from beings in trouble. That makes it our responsibility to help regardless of the risk." The bridge fell quiet as the crew absorbed their captain's words. They all knew the old traditions of the sea that humanity had carried to the stars. Any ship in distress must be aided regardless of flag or nationality. But this was the first time they had applied those rules to completely alien beings. Dr. Lisa Park called from the medical bay with her analysis of the biological data they were receiving from the dying alien ship. "Their life signs are failing, Captain. Whatever atmosphere they breathe, it is very different from ours. High humidity and different pressure ratios. If we take them aboard, we will need to modify our life support systems." "How long do they have?" Harrison asked. "Based on the rate their ship is deteriorating, maybe 6 hours before total environmental failure. But, Captain, we do not have compatible life support for aquatic aliens. It would be extremely dangerous to attempt a rescue." Harrison looked out at the stars and thought about 17 beings dying alone in the vast emptiness of space. The choice was simple, even if the execution would be difficult. "We will find a way, Doctor. Plot rescue scenarios and prepare emergency atmospheric modifications for Cargo Bay 7. We have 4 hours to figure this out." The Dakota raced through space toward an impossible rescue mission that would change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The Dakota's sensors picked up the dying alien vessel when they were still 2 hours away. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez stared at her displays in amazement as the computer tried to analyze what they were seeing. The ship looked like nothing in any human database. Instead of metal plates and welded joints, it appeared to be grown like a living organism. Curved surfaces flowed together in patterns that reminded her of deep-sea creatures from Earth. "My God," whispered Ensign Carol White from the sensor station. "Captain, you need to see this. The alien vessel is beautiful, but it is falling apart. Whole sections are just dissolving into space." Captain Kyle Harrison studied the image on the main screen. The ship was elegant in a way that human engineering could never achieve. It looked alive even as it died. Streams of glowing particles flowed away from its hull like luminous blood. Whatever had attacked this vessel was destroying it from the inside out. "Life signs?" he asked. 17 beings still aboard," Dr. Lisa Park reported from her medical station. "Their biology is unlike anything we have seen. They appear to be aquatic with dual respiratory systems. They can breathe both water and air, but need very high humidity levels to survive." Chief Engineer Ben Murphy called from the engine room with technical details that made the situation even more complicated. "Captain, their power systems are completely organic. Living tissue generates their energy instead of fusion reactors or antimatter cores. As their ship dies, their power output is falling rapidly." Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan remained focused on security concerns. "Sir, we still do not know what caused this damage. Whatever weapon or virus attacked them could spread to our systems. We could be flying into a trap." Harrison understood his tactical officer's worries, but his decision remained unchanged. "Maintain course and prepare for first contact procedures. Rodriguez, can you establish communication?" Rodriguez had been working on the problem since they first received the distress call. Their transmission methods use quantum entanglement combined with bio-neural interfaces. "Very advanced, but I think I can create a basic translation matrix using mathematical concepts and universal constants." She opened a channel and began broadcasting simple mathematical sequences, prime numbers, the value of pi, and basic geometric relationships that any intelligent species would recognize. After several minutes, she received a response. The alien ship was sending back the same mathematical concepts, but with small variations that suggested they understood the attempt at communication. "Got something, Captain," Rodriguez announced with excitement. They are using the mathematical base we established to create word substitutions. Very clever. The main screen flickered and suddenly showed the interior of the alien bridge. The first thing Harrison noticed was the blue-green lighting and the humid atmosphere that made everything look slightly misty. Then he saw the aliens themselves and had to suppress a gasp of surprise. The being at the center of the bridge was obviously the captain. She stood about 6 feet tall with pale green skin that looked smooth and wet. Her head was larger than a human's with enormous multifaceted eyes that reflected the light like jewels. Gill slits along her neck opened and closed rhythmically while she wore what appeared to be a breathing mask over her mouth. Her hands had long webbed fingers that moved gracefully over bioorganic control surfaces. "This is Captain Zeth Ara of the research vessel Star's Grace," came the translated voice through their speakers. The words were halting and mechanical as the computer tried to convert alien concepts into human language. "We thank you for responding to our distress call. We did not expect anyone to hear us in this empty region of space." Harrison stepped forward so the alien captain could see him clearly on her screen. "This is Captain Kyle Harrison of the United Earth Navy vessel Dakota. We received your emergency transmission. What is your current status?" Through the awkward translation process, Zethara explained what had happened to her ship. They had been conducting archaeological surveys in deep space when they encountered what appeared to be an ancient artifact. The moment they began scanning the object, it had released some kind of quantum virus that attacked their bio-neural networks. The virus was breaking down their ship's living systems at the molecular level. Dr. Park listened carefully to the medical data being transmitted by the alien ship's failing systems. The Valaxian crew were slowly suffocating as their life support systems died around them. Their atmospheric requirements were very specific. They needed high humidity, increased oxygen levels, and trace amounts of gases that were toxic to humans. "Captain, their environment is becoming lethal," Park reported. "Based on the rate of system failure, they have maybe 4 hours before total atmospheric collapse." Harrison studied the alien captain on his screen. Despite the translation difficulties, he could see intelligence and desperation in her large eyes. 17 beings were about to die unless someone helped them. The fact that they were completely alien did not matter to him at all. "Can we modify our life support to accommodate them?" he asked his engineering team. Murphy had been running calculations since they first detected the alien vessel. "It would be extremely difficult, Captain. We would need to convert Cargo Bay 7 into a temporary habitat. High humidity, different atmospheric pressure, and a completely separate air recycling system. It would require shutting down life support to sections 4, 6, and 9 of our own ship. That would put our own crew at risk," Sullivan pointed out. "If something goes wrong with the modifications, we could lose atmospheric integrity in those sections." Harrison looked around at his bridge crew. These were experienced officers who had served with him for years. They trusted his judgment even when facing the unknown. But this decision would put all of their lives at risk for aliens they had never met before. "How long would the modifications take?" he asked. 3 hours if everything goes perfectly," Murphy replied. "But Captain, we have never attempted anything like this before. We are basically guessing about their environmental needs." On the main screen, Captain Zethara watched the human crew discuss her fate. She could not understand their words, but she recognized the debate taking place. These unknown beings were arguing about whether to risk their own safety to save strangers. In her thousands of years of galactic history, she had never seen anything like it. Most advanced civilizations had strict protocols for rescue operations. Risk assessment, authorization from command authorities, resource allocation reviews, and detailed safety procedures. The idea of immediately endangering ship and crew for unknown aliens was almost incomprehensible to Valaxian thinking. Yet, these humans seemed to be seriously considering doing exactly that. Harrison made his decision with characteristic directness. "Begin atmospheric modifications to Cargo Bay 7 immediately. Rodriguez, inform the Valaxian captain that we will attempt a rescue operation. All departments prepare for emergency evacuation procedures." The bridge erupted in controlled activity as his crew began implementing an impossible rescue plan. Murphy headed for Cargo Bay 7 with his engineering teams. Dr. Park started preparing medical equipment for alien physiology she had never encountered before. Rodriguez worked to improve communication with the dying alien ship. Only Sullivan remained concerned about the tactical situation. "Sir, we are making ourselves extremely vulnerable. If this is some kind of trap, we will be caught completely unprepared." Harrison understood the risk, but his course was already set. Maybe it is a trap, Commander. But 17 beings are dying out there and we are the only ones who can help them. That makes this our responsibility regardless of the danger. On the alien ship, Captain Zethara listened to the translated message from the human captain. These strange bipedal mammals were going to risk everything to save her crew. She had studied dozens of alien species during her career as an archaeological researcher, but she had never encountered anything like human behavior. Prepare the crew for evacuation, she ordered her officers, and transmit all of our research data to the human ship. If we do not survive this rescue attempt, at least our discoveries will not be lost. The Dakota moved closer to the dissolving alien vessel while both crews prepared for the most dangerous rescue operation in human history. Chief Engineer Ben Murphy worked faster than he had ever worked before in Cargo Bay 7. The large empty space that normally held supplies and equipment was being transformed into an alien habitat in less than 3 hours. Emergency atmospheric processors hummed as they began creating the high humidity environment the Valaxians needed to survive. Humidity levels at 60% and rising, reported engineering specialist Tony Clark as he monitored the environmental controls. But Captain, we are pulling so much power from the main grid that we had to shut down life support to sections 4, 6, and 9 just like you predicted. Murphy wiped sweat from his face as he worked to install the specialized breathing apparatus Dr. Lisa Park had designed. If the Valaxians could not adapt to human atmospheric pressure, they would need individual breathing chambers until their biology stabilized. Every piece of equipment was improvised from parts never intended for this purpose. Atmospheric pressure is still too low, called out technician Ray Porter from across the cargo bay. These aliens evolved in much denser air than we breathe. I am trying to compensate, but our systems were not designed for this kind of modification. On the bridge, Captain Kyle Harrison watched through the view screen as the Dakota moved into position next to the dying Valaxian ship. The alien vessel was beautiful even as it dissolved around its crew. Streams of luminous particles continued to flow away from its organic hull like glowing tears. Distance to target? Harrison asked. 50 meters and closing, replied Lieutenant Pete Watson at navigation. But Captain, their hull is so unstable that docking could cause complete structural collapse. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez had been monitoring communications with the alien ship. Captain Zethara reports they have less than 2 hours of life support remaining. Their bioneural networks are failing faster than expected. Harrison studied the tactical display showing both ships. The Dakota was massive and angular with heavy armor plating designed for combat. The Star's grace was elegant and curved like a living creature, but it was literally falling apart. Somehow they needed to create a safe passage between two completely different technologies. Murphy, what is your status? Harrison asked over the intercom. Almost ready, Captain, came the reply from Cargo Bay 7. The atmospheric modifications are holding, but barely. If we lose power to the environmental processors, our alien guests will suffocate in minutes. Dr. Park had been studying the biological data transmitted by the failing Valaxian medical systems. Captain, I am reading some disturbing information about their physiology. Several crew members have been exposed to high levels of the quantum virus while trying to maintain ship functions. Their bioneural implants are breaking down just like their ship's systems. Can you treat them? Harrison asked. I do not know. Their medical technology is completely biological while ours is mechanical. But I have prepared medical nanobots that might be able to stabilize their neural pathways long enough for us to get them to proper medical facilities. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan remained focused on the tactical situation. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting 3 ships approaching our position at high speed. Unknown configuration, but they appear to be heavily armed. Harrison felt a chill. Whoever had created the quantum virus that destroyed the Valaxian ship might be coming to finish the job. Time to intercept? 4 hours at their current speed, Sullivan replied. But sir, if they are hostile, we will be caught in an extremely vulnerable position during the rescue operation. The decision was already made in Harrison's mind. They would complete the rescue regardless of approaching threats. Continue rescue operations. We will deal with other problems as they arise. Murphy's voice came over the intercom with an update. Captain, we are ready to attempt docking. But the alien hull is so unstable that we can only maintain contact for about 30 minutes before risking catastrophic decompression. Understood. Begin docking procedures. The Dakota extended flexible docking tubes toward the Star's grace like mechanical arms reaching out to embrace a dying friend. The tubes were designed to connect with human airlocks, but the Valaxian ship had no such systems. Instead, the tubes had to create an emergency seal directly against the organic hull. "Contact established," reported Watson. "Seal integrity at 80% and holding." Inside the Star's Grace, Captain Zathara felt the vibration as the human docking tubes locked onto her ship. Through her neural connection to the dying vessel, she could sense its pain as foreign systems pressed against its dissolving hull, but she could also feel hope for the first time in days. "All crew to the docking area," she ordered. "Move quickly, but be careful. The hull sections around the human attachment point are very weak." The first human to cross between the ships was Murphy himself, wearing a full environmental suit. He moved carefully through the airlock into the Valaxian vessel, and immediately understood why Dr. Park had been concerned about biological compatibility. The air was so thick with moisture that his helmet visor began fogging, despite the anti-condensation systems. The interior of the Star's Grace was like nothing Murphy had ever seen. Curved corridors pulsed with soft light like the inside of a living creature. Control surfaces responded to touch like skin, and the walls themselves seemed to breathe. But everywhere he looked, he could see the effects of the quantum virus. Black veins spread through the bioorganic systems like infection through a body. Valaxian Chief Engineer Kelmore met Murphy at the airlock. Despite the language barrier, they immediately understood each other as engineers facing an impossible problem. Kelmore gestured toward the failing systems, and Murphy nodded in recognition. They began working together using gestures and drawings to communicate technical concepts. The evacuation began with the most critically injured crew members. Each Valaxian had to be carefully sealed into emergency breathing apparatus. Before crossing to the Dakota, Dr. Park met them in Cargo Bay 7, where she had set up a medical triage station using every piece of portable equipment she could find. The first Valaxian she treated was Science Officer Thylex, who had been working directly with the quantum virus data when the contamination began. His bioneural implants were failing, and his large, multifaceted eyes had lost their normal bright color. Park used her medical nanobots in a desperate attempt to stabilize his neural pathways. "It is working," she announced with surprise. "The nanobots are crude compared to their biological systems, but they are stopping the neural degradation." One by one, the Valaxian crew crossed from their dying ship to the improvised habitat aboard the Dakota. Each transfer was dangerous because the Star's Grace continued to dissolve around them. Murphy and his team worked alongside Valaxian engineers to maintain structural integrity long enough for everyone to escape. The most difficult transfer was Captain Zathara herself. She had been connected to her ship's bioneural networks longer than anyone, and the quantum virus had infected her personal implants. As she crossed through the docking tube, she was already losing consciousness from neural system failure. Dr. Park worked frantically to save the alien captain, while Murphy reported that the Star's Grace was entering final collapse. "All personnel clear," he announced. "Separating docking tubes now." Through the view screen, they watched as the elegant Valaxian vessel finally succumbed to the quantum virus. The bioorganic hull simply dissolved into its component molecules, leaving only empty space where the Star's Grace had floated for over 5 years. In Cargo Bay 717 Valaxian, survivors watched their home disappear forever. They were alive, but everything they had known was gone. Captain Zathara opened her large eyes in the Dakota's improvised medical bay and looked around at the strange human faces caring for her crew. "Why?" she whispered through the translation system. "Why did you risk everything for aliens you do not even know?" Captain Harrison stood beside her recovery bed and spoke words that would be remembered by both species for generations to come. "Because you called for help and we heard you. That makes you our responsibility regardless of who you are or where you came from." The rescue was complete, but the approaching ships meant their troubles were just beginning. Captain Zathara slowly recovered in the Dakota's modified medical bay, while Dr. Lisa Park monitored her vital signs. The Valaxian captain's large, multifaceted eyes moved constantly as she studied the human medical equipment surrounding her. Everything was so different from her own species' biological technology. Where Valaxian medicine used living tissue and organic compounds, humans relied on mechanical devices and synthetic chemicals. "Your nanobots are fascinating," Zathara said through the translation system. Her voice was getting stronger as the medical nanobot stabilized her damaged neural pathways. "They are crude compared to our bioneural networks, but they work in ways we never considered." Dr. Park smiled as she adjusted the humidity controls around the alien captain's bed. Our medicine focuses on mechanical solutions to biological problems. Your people seem to approach it the opposite way, using biological solutions for everything. In Cargo Bay 7, the rest of the Valaxian crew was adapting to their temporary home aboard the human warship. The atmospheric processors hummed constantly to maintain the high humidity environment they needed. Chief Engineer Kelmore worked alongside Ben Murphy to understand how human technology functioned, without any living components. Your fusion reactors are completely mechanical, Kelmore observed as Murphy showed him engineering diagrams on a portable display. No biological interfaces at all. How do you monitor reactor health without neural feedback? Murphy scratched his head as he tried to explain concepts that seemed obvious to humans but alien to Valaxians. We use sensors and computer analysis. The reactors send data to monitoring stations where our engineers interpret the information. But how do you feel when something is wrong? Kelmore asked. With our bio-neural networks, we can sense problems through direct connection to our ship's living systems. We learn to read the instruments and recognize patterns, Murphy replied. It takes years of experience to really understand what the data means. Young Valaxian scientist Thylex had recovered enough to begin working with the Dakota's science team. He was amazed by human-computer technology, which processed information using electronic circuits instead of biological neural networks. Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez showed him their translation systems and database structures. You store information in non-living memory banks. Thylex marveled as he studied a human datapad. The knowledge exists independently of any biological mind. This means your computers can operate without constant neural supervision. Rodriguez nodded. Our computers are tools we use rather than partners we connect with. They follow programmed instructions, but they do not think or feel. Remarkable, Thylex replied. Your approach to technology is so different from ours, yet it achieves similar results through completely opposite methods, Captain. Kyle Harrison spent time with Captain Zathera, learning about Valaxian culture and the broader galactic community. Through careful translation, he discovered that the Valaxians were part of something called the Aquatic Alliance, a confederation of waterworld species that had existed for over 12,000 years. We are explorers and archaeologists, Zathara explained. Our people have been studying ancient civilizations throughout this galaxy for millennia. The star's Grace was conducting deep space surveys to find artifacts from extinct species. Harrison was fascinated by the scope of Valaxian knowledge. How many different alien species have you encountered? The Aquatic Alliance includes 47 member species, Zathara replied. But we have contact with hundreds of other civilizations throughout the galaxy. Most follow similar patterns of development and social organization. What kind of patterns? Harrison asked. Zathara's large eyes reflected her confusion at the question. Advanced species develop efficient bureaucratic systems for decision-making. Risk assessment protocols, authorization hierarchies, resource allocation reviews. These systems prevent dangerous or wasteful actions. Harrison thought about his own decision to risk his ship and crew to save unknown aliens without any authorization from Earth Command. What would most species have done if they received your distress signal? They would have reported the contact to their government authorities, Zathara answered. Then committees would analyze the risks and benefits of a rescue operation. If approved, specialized rescue vessels would be dispatched with proper equipment and trained personnel. How long would that process take? Harrison asked. Typically several days for initial assessment, Zathara replied. Longer if the political situation is complex or if the unknown species might pose a threat. Harrison realized that by Valaxian standards, his immediate response to their distress call was almost incomprehensible. So most species would not risk their own ships and crews for unknown aliens. The safety of known crew members must take priority over unknown beings who might be hostile, Zathara explained. This is basic logic that all advanced civilizations follow. Dr. Park joined their conversation with updates on the medical treatment of the Valaxian crew. Captain Zathara, I have been studying the quantum virus that destroyed your ship. The pathogen appears to be artificial rather than natural. Yes, Zathara confirmed. Our analysis indicated it was created as a weapon by some unknown species many thousands of years ago. The Star's Grace was the third ship known to encounter this virus. The previous crews did not survive. Harrison felt a chill. Someone created this virus as a weapon and left it floating in space as a trap? The artifact we found was clearly designed to attract archaeological teams, Tylex added from his recovery bed. It broadcast energy signatures that suggested advanced ancient technology. When we began scanning it, the virus was released and began destroying our bio-neural systems. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan had been monitoring long-range sensors, and his report was troubling. Captain, those 3 ships I detected are still approaching our position. They will reach us in less than 2 hours. Harrison studied the tactical display showing the approaching vessels. Their design was unfamiliar and their intentions unknown. Any response to our communication attempts? Negative, sir, Rodriguez replied. They are maintaining communication silence and approaching at high speed. Captain Zathara listened to the conversation with growing alarm. Captain Harrison, those ships may belong to the hegemony. They are a militant faction that considers advanced technology to belong to superior species by right of conquest. Are they hostile? Harrison asked. The hegemony believes that weaker species should serve stronger ones, Zathara explained. They have been tracking the quantum virus and studying its effects. They want to capture survivors who have been exposed to the virus for experimentation. Sullivan's tactical assessment was grim. Sir, if those are hegemony vessels, they will be much more advanced than the Dakota. Their weapons and defensive systems will be superior to anything we have. Harrison looked around at his bridge crew and then at the Valaxian captain recovering in his medical bay. The rescue operation had succeeded, but now they faced a new threat. Unknown hostile ships were approaching, and the Dakota was in no condition to fight after using so much power for the atmospheric modifications. Captain Zathara, Harrison said quietly, if the hegemony captures you and your crew, what will happen? They will use us as test subjects to understand how biological systems react to the quantum virus, she replied. They want to develop the virus as a weapon against species that use bioorganic technology. Harrison nodded grimly. The Valaxians were refugees under his protection, and he would not abandon them to an unknown fate. Sullivan, prepare the ship for combat. All crew to battle stations. Sir, we cannot win against superior technology, Sullivan protested. Maybe we should consider negotiation. Harrison's expression was firm. These beings are under the protection of the United Earth Navy. We do not negotiate with pirates or slave traders regardless of how advanced their technology might be. In Cargo Bay 7, the Valaxian crew listened to the preparations for battle through the ship's communication system. They could not understand why these humans would fight impossible odds for aliens they barely knew. Captain Zathara realized she was witnessing something that challenged everything. She thought she understood about intelligent species and their behavior. The approaching ships would test human resolve against superior force, but Captain Harrison had already made his choice. The 3 hegemony ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel 2 hours later, just as Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan had predicted. Captain Kyle Harrison studied them through the Dakota's main view screen and felt his stomach tighten. The alien vessels were sleek and predatory-looking, with hull configurations unlike anything in human databases. They moved with the fluid grace of natural hunters closing in on wounded prey. Incoming transmission, reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from the communications station. They are broadcasting in perfect English. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the lead hegemony vessel. The alien commander was tall and thin with pale gray skin and large black eyes that showed no emotion. When he spoke, his voice was cold and precise like a computer analyzing data. Human vessel, I am Commander Vextal of the Hegemony Expeditionary Force. You will immediately surrender the Valaxian survivors and all data related to the quantum virus. In return, we will allow your primitive ship to depart this region unharmed. Harrison stepped forward so the alien commander could see him clearly. This is Captain Kyle Harrison of the United Earth Navy destroyer Dakota. The beings aboard my ship are refugees under our protection. Any attempt to board this vessel will be considered an act of war. Commander Vextal's expression did not change, but Harrison thought he detected amusement in the alien's dark eyes. Captain Harrison, you command a single outdated warship against 3 advanced hegemony cruisers. Your weapons and defensive systems are centuries behind our technology. Surely you understand the mathematics of this situation. I understand that 17 innocent beings are counting on me to protect them, Harrison replied. That is the only mathematics that matters. In the medical bay, Captain Zathara listened to the exchange through the ship's communication system. She called Dr. Lisa Park over to her recovery bed with urgent gestures. "Doctor, you must convince Captain Harrison to surrender my crew to the hegemony. The Dakota cannot win this battle. Your people will die for aliens you barely know." Dr. Park looked at the Valaxian captain with sympathy, but also with firm resolve. "Captain Zathara, you do not understand human nature. Captain Harrison gave you his protection and he will not break that promise regardless of the cost." "But it makes no logical sense," Zathara protested. "The hegemony will capture us anyway after they destroy your ship. At least this way the human crew will survive." "Logic is not always the most important consideration," Dr. Park replied quietly. "Sometimes doing what is right matters more than doing what is safe." On the bridge, Commander Vexital continued his attempt at negotiation. "Captain Harrison, your species is new to interstellar politics. You do not understand the forces you are challenging. The hegemony has conquered dozens of civilizations throughout this galaxy. We take what we need from inferior species and give them the privilege of serving their betters. We have heard similar speeches from bullies and tyrants throughout human history," Harrison replied. "The words are always the same even when the speakers are different. You want something that does not belong to you and you are threatening violence to get it. The quantum virus represents advanced biological warfare technology," Vextel explained with the patience of a teacher instructing a slow student. "Such weapons should be controlled by species capable of using them responsibly. The Valaxians are weak archaeologists who stumbled upon forces beyond their understanding." Chief Engineer Ben Murphy reported from the engine room that all systems were ready for combat, but his voice carried little optimism. "Captain, we are running at reduced power because of the atmospheric modifications for our guests. If we restore full power to weapons and shields, the Valaxian life support systems will fail." Harrison understood the impossible choice he was being asked to make. Save power for weapons and let the refugees die, or maintain life support and fight at reduced capacity. Maintain life support to Cargo Bay 7. We will make do with what power we have left. Lieutenant Pete Watson at Navigation had been calculating tactical options, and his report was grim. "Sir, the hegemony ships are faster and more maneuverable than the Dakota. They can choose the range and angle of engagement. We will not be able to avoid their fire." Commander Vextal seemed to sense the humans' internal debate and pressed his advantage. "Captain Harrison, I will give you 60 seconds to reconsider. Surrender the Valaxians and their data, or watch your crew die in a hopeless battle against superior technology." Harrison looked around his bridge at the officers who had served with him for years. These were good people who trusted his judgment even when facing impossible odds. He thought about the oath he had taken long ago to protect all life, and the ancient human tradition that any ship in distress must be aided regardless of the consequences. "Commander Vextal," Harrison said in a voice that carried across both bridges, "you have 60 seconds to withdraw from this system before we open fire." The hegemony commander's emotionless expression finally showed surprise. "You cannot be serious. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our defensive screens." "Maybe not," Harrison admitted, "but we are going to try anyway because it is the right thing to do." The battle began exactly 60 seconds later when the Dakota opened fire with all available weapons. Plasma cannons and missile batteries targeted the lead hegemony cruiser in a coordinated attack that would have destroyed any human vessel. But the alien ship's defensive screens absorbed the damage while barely registering the impacts. The hegemony response was swift and devastating. Energy weapons struck the Dakota's shields and armor with power levels far beyond human technology. Warning lights flashed across the bridge as systems overloaded and emergency repairs began automatically. "Shields down to 40%, reported Ensign Carol White from the damage control station. "Hull breaches on decks 5 and 7. Emergency bulkheads are sealing the damaged sections." Harrison ordered evasive maneuvers, but the Dakota was too slow to avoid the superior alien vessels. The hegemony ships moved like dancers around the human destroyer, striking from multiple angles while avoiding return fire. It was obvious that they were playing with their prey rather than finishing the battle quickly. "Why are they not destroying us?" Sullivan wondered as he tried to target the fast-moving enemy ships. The answer came from Captain Zathara over the intercom. "They want to capture the Dakota intact, so they can study human technology and interrogate the crew. Commander Vextel is trying to disable your ship without causing total destruction." As if to confirm her words, the hegemony attack shifted to target the Dakota's engines and weapon systems. rather than vital areas. They wanted prisoners, not corpses. Harrison realized this gave him a small tactical advantage because the aliens were holding back their most devastating weapons. All power to forward weapons, he ordered. Target the lead cruiser's drive systems. The Dakota's remaining missiles struck the Hegemony flagship just as its defensive screens cycled to recharge. The impact was not enough to destroy the alien vessel, but it damaged their faster-than-light drive and reduced their maneuverability. For the first time in the battle, Commander Vextal looked genuinely surprised. Impressive, the alien commander admitted. Your tactics are crude but effective. However, this changes nothing. You cannot win against 3 ships even if you damage one of them. Before Harrison could reply, new contacts appeared on the long-range sensors. Lieutenant Rodriguez announced the arrivals with excitement and relief in her voice. Captain, I am reading multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Configuration matches Aquatic Alliance vessels from the Valaxian database. The main screen split to show both the Hegemony commander and a new alien captain. This being was clearly Valaxian with the same large multifaceted eyes and gill slits as Captain Zathara. This is Fleet Commander Mordeth of the Aquatic Alliance Battle Group. Human Vessel Dakota, we received your emergency beacon and have come to assist. Commander Vextal's cold expression showed the first sign of genuine concern. Alliance interference was not anticipated. These are Hegemony territorial claims backed by superior military force. The quantum virus you have been spreading violates 17 interstellar treaties, Fleet Commander Mordeth replied. The Alliance will not allow the Hegemony to continue these illegal experiments. The tactical situation changed completely as 6 Alliance warships took position around the Dakota. The Hegemony vessels were now outnumbered and facing opponents with comparable technology. Commander Vextal made the logical decision to withdraw rather than risk a major interstellar incident. This matter is not finished, Vextal warned as his ships prepared to leave. The Hegemony remembers its enemies. As the hostile vessels disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Harrison finally allowed himself to breathe normally. The Dakota had survived, but the ship was badly damaged and several crew members were injured. More importantly, the Valaxian refugees were safe under Alliance protection. Fleet Commander Mordeth appeared on screen with genuine gratitude in his alien features. Captain Harrison, the Alliance has monitored your actions during this crisis. Your willingness to risk everything for unknown aliens goes against all conventional tactical wisdom. Sometimes conventional wisdom is wrong, Harrison replied simply. Indeed, Mordeth agreed. Captain Zethar,